Well, it happened to me again. At work, I hit my stress max. Hello everyone, welcome into another episode of the Story Lesson Advice Podcast, part of Saturday is Datterday Media, life advice podcast, book reviews, product reviews, cooking videos, and more, all in due time. Thanks for listening. I am Justin, the host. You can find me at Saturday is Datterday Media on Instagram and YouTube, and the website is sidmedia.net. Thanks for listening. We'll get right into it. So today, the story I have is a fairly recent one dealing with my ability or inability to manage a stress workload at work. And I wanted to share this because I wanted to see how many of you feel the same way or have felt the same way or have experienced some version of this. So within the last 2 months at work, I've had a handful of things added to my job description and to my workload, and some of them have been not at my request, and some of them were decisions that were made without involving me. And my initial reaction to that is to be upset about that because, hey, it's my job and it's me, and what are you doing dumping work on me and all of that sort of stuff. However, I need to remind myself that I'm an employee of the company, and this happens all the time to people everywhere, and it happens much more severe to people everywhere other than just me. So this is not a sob story, and I'm not looking for any sympathy from anybody on this. But I feel like when I've been in a work situation, and maybe you felt this way too, when you're humming along at work and something gets added to your plate, and you're like, okay, I can take this on, one more thing. And then something else gets added on, and you're like, okay, starting to get full here, like I'm going to need some help, and then something else gets added on, and you're like, okay, this is it. I can't handle anymore. Like I barely have enough time, to eat my lunch and go to the bathroom. And then all of a sudden on top of that, you throw deadlines. And that's what happened to me recently. And it culminated with me calling one of my bosses and saying like, hey, this makes me not even want to work here anymore. And I was pretty hot, pretty upset, and did not have a great attitude about it. I wasn't screaming or yelling at anything, but like I did not hold back with my frustrations about how the last 2 months had unfolded. And I was told, hey, we appreciate your candor on this, and we appreciate you being honest, and you have to be able to say stuff like this. So I felt good from the standpoint that I was comfortable enough and had built a good enough relationship with my leadership that I can be candid with them and say stuff like that without them thinking that, I'm going to run off and quit. And at the same time, it was kind of a wake-up call for me because I don't think I did as good of a job as I should have managing my emotions through that. And I think there was a valuable lesson that I learned along the way. All right, and now it's time for this week's sponsor, I Wish I Had. And this week's sponsor, I Wish I Had, is a service that I actually have been using for several months, and I have found it to be extremely beneficial. And I want to preface this with there might still be kind of a stigma or something associated with the idea of therapy or talking to someone that is a professional to help you work through things. And I had utilized a service like this years ago when my father passed away. And it's not that I so much felt as I, quote, needed it at the time, but I felt that it was a good idea to utilize because sometimes when you're in something, it's hard for you to recognize what you might need or where your deficiencies are or whatever. So I had an opportunity to utilize this service, and the service is called betterup.com, BetterUp, and they have a good About Us page that helps identify. So I'm going to read this. They talk about bringing the power of transformation to each and every person. Their mission is to help people everywhere live their lives with greater clarity, purpose, and passion. And they are the first human transformation platform that scales whole person behavioral change, integrating into your flow of work to boost organizational performance and measurability with behavioral science, analytics, and evidence-based coaching. We bring human transformation to organizations and self-actualization to people worldwide. I know that was a lot, but this is actually a service that work pays for, and it's focused on trying to help an employee grow. And a big part of how they grow, and the person that I have a chance to work with, the coach, is, hey, let's talk about you outside of work and see where some deficiencies are and where some opportunities for growth are. So I've spent the last several months working with this coach, and she's just wonderful, talking about a whole bunch of different things that are personal, professional, marriage-related, family-related, work-related, all sorts of things. And I cannot advocate enough for being open-minded to working with someone as a coach in some form of therapy or some form of coaching or whatever. And just like people have no problem utilizing a personal trainer for fitness or a nutritionist for nutrition, well, why would you not use a coach with someone like BetterUp to help you with all of the other things? So betterup.com is the website, and they have an extensive service offering. And I highly recommend taking a closer look at this for businesses or for individuals. BetterUp.com, that is this week's sponsor. I wish I had. Okay, so I gave you a generic story about how I had additional things added on to me at work. And specifically, I had a new role that I have been getting used to. And we have some goals for our individual sales team and company. There was a new person that was hired on that I was responsible also for training, getting up to speed, and helping shape and create that new position. Then I was also responsible for hiring a new person in a certain market. So I had to learn a couple of software platforms to be able to search for resumes and do all that and go through all the different interviews and the pre-qualification conversations and all of those things. And then in addition to that, the heat is turned up as far as the industry needing better performance and, more sales, more better all the time, whatever, right? So what everybody deals with. And I kind of hit, like I said, my stress level max. And I made a note here that I think articulates why I ended up getting frustrated. And I say here, ultimately, I realized that I get really upset and frustrated not because of the workload or the stress, but because I tend to focus on the reason why the workload or the stress is there. Ultimately, it doesn't matter why it's there. It's there, you just have to deal with it. But I get upset when I see that stress is clearly avoidable. And I try to do a really good job in my life of planning and organizing, and not to the nth degree where I've got every minute of every day planned out, but think through something hard, organize it, plan it, and then you can sit back and just enjoy the rest of the day or the week or whatever. And I tend to get frustrated when things go sideways, not because they go sideways, but because of poor planning or poor organization on other people's parts, or a last minute, like, oh, I changed my mind, I don't want to go here for dinner, I want to go there. It's like, well, we're already halfway to the first place, so now we're going to turn around and go back the other way for no reason, really? So more of that kind of a thing. When that happens, I start to lose control. I notice that when those things happen at work, for example, and repeatedly, where I feel like avoidable stress is being dumped on me and I get frustrated about it, then I start to see things happening outside of work, that I'm having negative behavior outside of work. I start to lose control of things. I start to lose control of my consistency of working out, of eating a balanced diet, of making time for friends. I notice that my downtime turns more into just screen time instead of doing things, instead of reading books, instead of being more present with my wife and daughter. And I notice those things happen. And the lesson for me is, just like I've talked about in previous episodes about needing a system and a process for managing your workload and managing your day-to-day, and things like block scheduling to be able to help you block out time so you can focus on things and you be proactive with how you want to run your day and run your week. But aside from all that, I realized that the lesson is I also need to have a system and a process to manage my frustrations and emotions when I get to that feeling of overwhelm. When I get there, when I feel like the wheels are starting to come off, I need to be able to have some form of a system or process to fall back on. And I think that's a valuable lesson for everybody to learn. And I don't mean, a structured calendar or a list of to-dos or whatever, but finding that structure or process, however loose or tight it is, for when the wheels start to come off and when you start to feel overwhelmed about things, you can lean on that, knowing that, okay, that can be a safety blanket in a sense of like, all right, I feel myself starting to pull away. What's the thing I can do to recenter myself? And a good example of that would be like, I struggle with working out, right? When things get overwhelming and I'm working longer, I'm up earlier, I'm to bed later, I'm traveling, I get frustrated sometimes at the way that the schedule plays out, or I'm just tired. So what's the thing I can do? Well, instead of trying to cram in a full workout or getting frustrated that I'm not able to do a workout, can I just walk for 30 minutes, right? So that's something like that can be very simple. Or I get frustrated, I tend to lean on food as a stress relief or as a comfort. So can I make sure that I've got a backup supply of balanced prepared meals in the freezer or something like that, where, hey, if I know that I'm coming into a rough week or the next couple of days are unexpectedly going to be kind of crazy, let me make sure I've got a good supply of food. So that is on autopilot. That's one less decision that I have to make. And I think what I end up finding is, and you might find this too, is when you get into overwhelm, the small decisions can start to become big decisions. When it's, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? When am I going to go pick up this or return this or mail this or whatever? Those little things start to pile up and they become big decisions. So if I can help remove little decisions and take that part out of the equation, then that's going to help manage when I get to that overwhelm and help me get over the hump and then back down to where things can kind of level out a little bit more. All right, and now it's time for this week's Just the Tip. And right around the corner, well, right smack dab in the middle right now, it is summertime. And that is time for cookouts, time for grilling out, time for cooking out. And to kind of go along with managing your stress and managing your workload, my Just the Tip is revolving around when you are the host at the summer grill out or the summer cookout, or you're hosting a birthday party, or friends are coming over and you're in charge of the food. My advice to you is pare the menu down. So one thing you can do is pick, instead of 5 things, pick 2. So nobody is going to remember that you had 11 different offerings on the counter, or that you had steak and hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken and ribs and brisket and all that. So my advice is, hey, if you're grilling out, grill 1 to 2 things. That's it. If you're looking at side dishes, have 1 to 2 side dishes, and that's it. If you're looking at a signature cocktail or something like that, have 1. Have it be something that you can make ahead of time, hold in the fridge, and then all you have to do is serve it. And the second part of this, just the tip, is if you do want to expand the menu, which I understand you can't just have just hamburger and corn as the only 2 things and you've got 10 people at your house, use the chips and the salsa and use the dips and use pre-made or store-bought stuff or things you can do ahead of time. Let those things be the accessories that kind of fill in the gaps of your menu. So you're planning a summer cookout, a July 4th cookout, right? Do burgers and hot dogs on the grill. That's easy to manage. Throw 1 vegetable on the grill, like corn. If you're going to have another side, do like a pasta salad or a potato salad. You can make that 1, 2, 3 days ahead of time. Keep it in the fridge. It gets better as the days go on. So you're good there. And then fill in the rest of the gaps with chips and store-bought salsa or guac or a 7-layer dip or something that you can buy at the store. Or let dessert be something that you purchase. You pick up some cookies or some cupcakes or something like that. So that's an easy way to manage where you can still enjoy the party that you're hosting instead of just running around, because let's face it, you're not a line cook, you're not a chef, and there's no expectation to have that you should be able to manage, 15 different things that are cooking and some inside, some outside. That's not fair. All you're going to do is stress yourself out and nothing is going to come out the way that you want. So pare down the menu, use store-bought things to fill in the gaps, crack a beer, and enjoy your summer cookout. That is this week's Just the Tip. All right, and this week's advice is actually a little unique because it was wonderful enough that someone was able to provide me with a little advice in the form of a voice recording. So I'm going to play that now. The woman's name is Monika Kristofferson, and I reached out to her and asked if she'd be willing to share any advice on how to better manage our 5 to 9, right? So after our workday and then also on the weekends. What are 1 or 2 very simple things we can do at home, low effort, low energy things, no cost solutions? What are 1 or 2 little things that we can put into practice to help make better use of our time, to be better organized, and to feel better about what we're doing so it's less of an issue for us to manage that time?
I'm going to share my recommendation for something that you can do to better manage your time from the time you leave work or leave your office if you're working from home and the time you go to bed. So I think it's really important to be clear about what's important to you that you want to accomplish for the day and how much time you have available to do that for the remainder of the day with a clear end time for bed. When you haven't gotten clear on what you want to accomplish, it's really easy to get pulled in different directions, or maybe you start saying yes to the wrong things, and those things maybe aren't in alignment with what you want or what you need. That can be frustrating. Sometimes it means we run out of time during the day and then feel like, well, I didn't accomplish what I wanted. Or people will just start staying up into the middle of the night and try to burn the candle on both ends, which really is not good for productivity in the big picture. So be clear on what's important to you and how much time you have available. And then when it comes to weekends, something that you can do to be more productive during the weekend but still have plenty of time for relaxation and recharging yourself, knowing how quickly the weekend goes by, is to have clear boundaries on what you're willing to do that's not relaxation related. So what will you want to accomplish? Create a list. And then what's really important is to add the amount of time that you think that task or multiple tasks are going to take. Because a lot of times we underestimate how long something's going to take. And then we get frustrated because we didn't check things off of our list. Or again, we let it bleed into something else like our relaxation and recharging time. And those weekends are really valuable, so you don't want to do that. So just get really clear on your boundaries, what you want to accomplish, and really make sure you try to be as realistic as you can about how long each one of those tasks is going to take.
So that was the advice from Monika. I won't add anything to it other than to say that I think that's very good and practical and realistic advice. So thank you so much to Monika for being willing to contribute to that. And I really appreciate that. And hopefully everybody listening can take something away from that as well. A note that I had on, in addition to that, on kind of managing your max workload when you hit that stage of overwhelm and you're like, I cannot have one more thing added on, is to focus on what you can control. And an example of this personally for me is I used to work at this really nice Italian restaurant, and I started working there right after my dad passed away, and it was the right job, the wrong time in my life is the way that I've described it before. Couldn't have asked for a better restaurant, couldn't have asked for a better chef, better sous chef, better line cooks, better serving staff, better som. All of that was just top notch. And I was so fortunate to be able to work there. I had just a real difficult time and a mental struggle getting through the day. And I was not my best version of that. But I was able to work there for about a year and really enjoyed it. And when I used to get really overwhelmed, I mean, every day was overwhelmed there because it's such a good restaurant. But when I used to get really kind of in the shit, as they called it, when I was in over my head, what I did was I tried to focus on the next task. That's it. And one of my old episodes from season 1 is titled, How Do You Eat an Elephant One Bite at a Time? And that's basically it. It's a joke between me and some friends. But I just try to focus on I tried to focus on, can I just complete the next task on my prep list? That's it. Because if I looked at my prep list, it was a mile long. It looked like one of those scrolls that you see in a Lord of the Rings movie. And that would just overwhelm me, and I would just kind of like almost go into paralysis type of thing. But what I tried to focus on was, can I just do the next thing? And I was distracted, because my father just passed away and I was not 100%. I just remember to keep telling myself, just do the next thing. That's it. Don't look at the prep list. Just focus on the next thing. And when I was able to do that in those days, in between running into the bathroom and just crying because I was sad about my dad, but when I was able to do that and focus on that, I was able to get through the day, and the day just flowed a little bit easier because I was just looking at the next thing. Okay, and this week's Whisper In is the person that I just mentioned. Her name is Monika Kristofferson, and her Instagram account is @efficientorganization. And she is a professional organizer and productivity coach. She was kind enough to contribute the advice that you just heard. And her Instagram account is full of helpful tips and information on how to be better organized and more efficient. And for her coaching, she provides virtual or in-person, depending on where you live. She can help you with business productivity, focus management, office organization, home organization, life balance, and goals. And I saw a recent post that she did that was talking about organizing your garage. And I think that's great because the garage is the house's junk drawer. Like, you might think it's the junk drawer in the kitchen. It's not. Your junk drawer is actually the garage. So, my recommendation is to check out Monika at Efficient Organization on Instagram and start following her and start reading through some of her posts and her reels. I think you will find them very helpful. And again, a big thank you to Monika for being willing to contribute to this week's episode. All right, so as we wrap things up on another episode of the Story Lesson Advice Podcast, the story that I gave you, me hitting my overwhelm moment at work or at my plate, was beyond full and being frustrated about it. The lesson that I learned from that ultimately is that I need to develop a system and or a process for when I hit that overwhelm, because it's going to happen again, that I will be able to manage my way through that, just kind of weather the storm, get through it, and then get back on the other side of it. And if I can do that and my period of overwhelm gets smaller and smaller each time, that's going to help me with the ebbs and flows of my life, and I'll be able to better manage myself through that and not let myself fall off on workouts or fall off on eating a balanced diet or fall off on too much screen time or spending time with the family and all of that. The advice was kind enough from Monika Kristofferson, which you heard, and talking about things you can do from your 5 to 9 and things you can do on your weekend. And the main takeaway from that, I thought, was really being specific and intentional about what you want to get accomplished and being realistic with what you think you can accomplish. And as a bonus little thought, one of the biggest frustrations about doing all of this, the multiple podcasts, the multiple video series, is all of this takes so much longer than you think. Just right now as I'm recording, for some reason, the voice recording just stopped. So I had to go and delete a whole bunch of old recordings before I could continue with the end of this podcast. But every single thing that you do takes longer than you think, even on a road trip or whatever. So giving yourself enough time, being very specific and very intentional with what you're doing, I think that is a great way to also manage expectations. The sponsor I wish I had is BetterUp, betterup.com. They offer personal and business coaching for people, individuals and businesses. and I'm using it through our business, and it has been a wonderful experience to help become a more well-rounded person, talking about all sorts of things, personal, professional, marriage, family, work-related, all of it. So I would highly recommend checking that out, betterup.com, and I think it can be absolutely transformative. Even if you don't think there's a need for it, you'd be surprised. Just the tip segment was all about summer cookouts. Again, pare down your menu, make it manageable so that you can be part of the party, not just the host. That's a trap I've fallen into so many times, wanting to flex my culinary muscles. I got just a pile of shit in the kitchen everywhere. The food is mediocre because I'm not able to give anything the attention it deserves. So pare down your menu, focus on just a couple of things, use store-bought stuff to fill in the gaps, and enjoy your summer cookout. The Whisper In was our friend of the show here, Monika Kristofferson of Efficient Organization, the handle on Instagram, professional coach, professional organizer, and someone that you absolutely should utilize. So her Instagram handle again is @EfficientOrganization on Instagram. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Story Lesson Advice Podcast. Please consider subscribing and sharing if you haven't already. This is part of Saturday is Saturday Media, the lifestyle podcast, which is this, a book review podcast called I Hate Reading, an unbox and review video series, and a culinary series is on the way, along with books and blogs, all in due time. So thank you so much for supporting all of this. We will see you next time on the Story Lesson Advice Podcast. Have a great day.